welcome to Find Out Nation. I'm one of your hosts, Jaime.
And I'm one of your hosts, Nicole.
And we're here to talk to you about what happens when a nation fucks around and finds out. Nicole.
Yeah.
How many days in are we?
84.
80. We haven't even hit 90 yet.
No, I think 90 will be Easter fucking Sunday.
Isn't that appropriate? Yeah, you're right, because that's right. Like,
April
now that
20th.
you say that, because it's 420. It's,
420. Believe
that's
it.
right. It's 420, because we talked last podcast about the possibility of invoking like the Atrocities Act or whatever it is that, whatever. Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
How long do we have until the midterms?
567.
Oh, God.
I keep thinking that every week I'm going to be able to give you some great number that's going to be like 115, and we're not there.
Okay, we got to put the podcast recording of 115 days out on our calendars now to make sure, because that is going to be a super great day for us when we're 115 days out.
It really is. Yes.
Oh, Jesus. I'll tell you what. Okay, this week we have, so last week I felt like we had so many topics to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
This week, all the topics that we have, so we actually have narrowed it down, because it wasn't just a batshit crazy week this week, but the shit that's going on is literally batshit crazy.
Yes.
For those of you who are curious, it is Monday the 14th, so who knows what's going to happen by the time you guys actually listen to this. But at least as of right now, it is a goddamn crazy time to live in the United States. So first topic that I would love to talk about is the Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So this is the Maryland man who has children. He is on a protected status. He is immigrated here legally. Mm-hmm. He is supposed to be 100% like, by the way, anybody who's watching this podcast, if you notice I have a black eye, this is my dog did this. It's not a cry for help. I just want you guys to know that.
Yes.
Nicole and I were talking about this earlier, and I realized you don't notice it, but when you do notice it, like, you really notice it.
You notice it.
But I don't have a disease. I'm not like being beaten by my husband or child.
Yes.
Unfortunately, like, my dog gets really excited. She puts her paws, and I have a 140-pound Great Pyrenees, and she just whatever. So anyway,
she does not know her own size.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No ham, no turkey. This child loves to show her love with her paws, and she has no idea. So anyway, just want to get that away. All right. So back to Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So the man was detained by ICE, who said that his status had been revoked, which was patently untrue.
Yeah.
He basically was taken into custody, just declared an El Salvadorian gang member because of some tattoos that he had, and was immediately deported to these, they're calling them terrorist containment camps, but they are basically concentration camps, which we are all well aware of. And nobody's really disputing that, by the way. Okay. What to me is absolutely fucking crazy about this story is that, so the guy, is like, oh yeah, definitely, detained in El Salvador wrongly. The Trump Justice Department officials have said that he was deported due to a clerical error. He never should have been deported. And again, we know that all of this is being done with no due process, nothing at all. Mm-hmm. So Justice Department officials have said in court filings that they fucked up. They should not have deported him. Like, this is a problem. So a federal judge comes along and says, okay, well, get him the fuck back. Like, you have until this day to get him the fuck back. It goes all the way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court puts a stay on this and says, wait, let's look it over. We'll figure it out, and then we'll let you know what we decide. So they spend some time on, like, whatever. They issued their decision, which had 0 dissenters. They all agreed that this was a mistake, that the DOJ says they made the mistake. We have to get this guy back. The president of El Salvador meets with Trump today. And his comment...
Hold on. Yeah. I had not looked up said president of El Salvador. I don't know what I thought. I do know what I thought he was going to look like. I thought he was going to look like, Muammar Gaddafi.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? Like a fucking dictator. Like, that's, in my mind, that's what he was younger than I thought he was going to be. He was in much better physical shape than I thought he was going to be. Like, I was just shocked. I had no idea that's because in keeping up with this whole story and like doing research and shit for it, it had never occurred to me to be like, Google the president of El Salvador. Like, I just hadn't done it.
Me neither, because I had assumed all of the direction and directives had come from Trump. So you're right. Like, in all, and like, he had that black suit and black shirt. Like, he looked like Elon Musk. Like, at the end of the day, he looked like,
I was very shocked by...
He was dressed like Elon Musk. Yeah, yes. It was weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so he comes to the White House, and he has an interesting interaction with Trump, right? Anyway. And he comes out of that meeting and is basically like, well, Trump says this guy is a terrorist, so why would I send him back to you guys? What are we saying? So your Department of Justice is admitting they made a mistake and this guy should not have been deported. But Trump is going around telling everyone, no, he's a terrorist. You need to keep him. So El Salvador, believing Trump, because why wouldn't they, is like, yep, sorry, he's a terrorist. Why would I send him back to you? That's crazy. Trump says so. The Supreme Court has ordered the Department of Justice and the State Department to get this guy back. And Pam Bondi is like, well, the only thing that we can do is supply him a plane to fly back on. Otherwise, he's screwed. And now they're saying that in order for, like, we can't do anything. We can't convince El Salvador to return this guy. We can't
force El Salvador to do something they don't want to do.
Right. And yet we're the ones who are saying, no, we don't want him back because he's a terrorist. And the fact that, like, all of this is like Trump just controlling the situation, and Trump's team, they're saying, well, the Supreme Court has no jurisdiction here to tell Trump how he should be interacting with other foreign leaders. Like, they don't get to dictate foreign policy. So the best we can do is we can provide a plane, but that's it. That's all we can do. What? And the scary thing about this, y'all, is, in this case, yes, it is someone who did immigrate here. And, but now that Trump has said today that he would open up deportation of any U.S. citizen convicted of a violent crime to El Salvador, it could be any of us. Like, It's almost scary for us to continue this podcast because, I mean, luckily, like, there's, 17 of you watching these days. Right. So I'm not wildly concerned, but at the end of the day, like, there is concern that, like, someone could mistake me for a serial killer, deport me to El Salvador, and nobody's going to do anything to get me back.
I mean,
that's reality.
He was caught on a hot mic today telling the president of El Salvador that he wants what he calls homegrowns to be American, he wants to deport American citizens whom he called homegrowns to El Salvador for detention. And Pam Bondi, when he was being questioned during the Oval Office stuff with the president of El Salvador today, he referred questions about Abrego Garcia to Pam Bondi, who said he is illegally in the U.S. The courts have ruled that Abrego Garcia was a member of the MS-13 gang. I need everybody to remember, a court can't rule on something when you've not been given due fucking process.
That's right.
This country. They never put this man in front of a court and said, here's all the charges against him. Here's all our proof that he's done it. Here's his defense attorney saying he didn't do it. Now tell us what's true. Tell us if we can deport him.
And
that never happened.
Right. Her own Department of Justice said, we made a mistake. We made an administrative
And then they
mistake.
fired him for it.
Right.
She fired him for it after court that day.
That's right.
For admitting to a federal judge that they didn't have
proof because it had never gone to a court.
Yes, literally.
And this is what is terrifying. When the left talks about fascism, this is what we mean, is deporting someone because they happen to be from El Salvador at one point, and you think, whatever, and making snap judgments and decisions that cause real people who have real concerns to get caught up. The right is always like, well, just don't break the law. Just don't break the law and you won't get caught up in it.
Duh.
But we're seeing right here someone who didn't break the law, who was here as they were supposed to be here.
Yes.
And
who never missed one of his annual immigration appointments ever. Exactly. He checked in always. He did everything he was supposed to fucking do.
That's right. He did everything he was supposed to do, and yet he still got deported. And our State Department is like, well, too bad.
Sorry about you.
Yep.
Yeah. And what kills me is now he's a member of MS-13 when originally he was supposedly a member of the Venezuelan gang. Or the Venezuelan gang. Yep. So I'm just like, we're throwing shit at the wall to see what will fucking stick.
100%.
And then we're also doing all this other crazy shit to try to get this out of the news so that people will forget about it.
Right.
And we can quit talking about it.
Right. So this is one of those things that I'm like, oh my God, this is terrifying. The one good light on this is how much national news this has gotten. To be perfectly honest, like a lot of times these types of cases go, well, so the fact that there has been some actual national news on it is great. What I want to ask you is, do you think this scares any MAGA or any Republican whatsoever?
No, because they don't think it will ever be them.
Yep.
Or anybody that they love.
Yep.
Never.
Yep.
They fully are willing to believe that this guy has done something wrong. And the fact that we didn't pull him into a courtroom and we didn't officially charge him with a crime and we didn't he's a fucking immigrant, so we don't care.
That's right. Even though, with the Supreme Court ruling this week that basically was like, hey, listen, I mean, I know Trump was all big and bad about the Supreme Court ruling this week, but in reality, when you read it, it's very much like it solidifies the fact that there should be 100% due process for anyone that the United States government is taking action against, whether legal, illegal, whether an immigrant or a visiting citizen.
It solidified what's in the fucking Constitution. Exactly.
It solidified what was in the goddamn Constitution, which is everyone has a right to due process. And it also, said that, hey, this is what you guys have to operate within. Like, these are the boundaries that you have to operate within. And if I were like Trump, I'd be looking at that like, oh, this really does mean that we fucked up here and I need to make a change. And if I was MAGA, I'd be like, you guys fucked up here. Like, I just don't understand the complete and total dissonance you have to experience to say this is okay. Or like, I'm okay with this. If you are trying to tell me you are pro-patriot, pro-constitution, pro-blah, blah.
And anti-Trump. Don't tread on me.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing for me is it's like, I don't know how you don't put yourself in his place.
Yep.
How do you not, like, just because he was an immigrant that's here illegally, he was doing he has a wife and a child. And he was doing all of his annual check-ins with immigration. And he was doing everything. He was holding a job. He was doing everything he was supposed to do.
Yep.
I don't know how you don't see this situation and say, okay, I'm a natural born citizen. So some of what he's dealing with or what is him is not applicable to me. However, if I get a speeding ticket, or if I do,
not only that,
you know what I'm saying?
I realize that you have somewhat of a generic name, as I do not, but mine is still pretty whatever.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we couldn't get confused with someone who did all sorts of
Right.
This whole point of this is they made an administrative mistake. I've heard the stories of people who have gotten stopped for a speeding ticket. They ran their plates. Oh, you're so-and-so.
Yep.
You committed a goddamn triple homicide. I'm taking you
Girl.
into jail. And it's taken them days and weeks to get out. And until you experience that, you don't realize how awful that is.
We have a mutual friend
That's
that literally happened to, and
Oh,
I've
yeah?
never told you that story. It was years long. They were in South Missouri. Like, he would get pulled over and get arrested because of outstanding warrants. This other person with his exact name, middle initial, and everything had similar birth date, all of it. They had to go to South Missouri to fight this shit. It took fucking years.
And that's my thing, is that it happens.
Yes.
Now imagine that instead of going to a local jail,
Right.
you got deported to El Salvador, and now, sorry,
Yeah,
you're
they
there.
just put you
There's
on a
nothing we can
plane
do.
and
Yeah.
you don't get to call anybody. You don't
Right.
get to say anything.
Yes. And for any of you that are saying that couldn't happen, we're seeing it right fucking now. It's happening right now.
Trump is saying on a hot mic, I want to be able to deport American citizens that I decide have done one too many crimes, are too much of a, threat to the United States.
Yep.
On the same day that he also said he wanted CBS News yanked off the air because he didn't like their 60 Minutes piece on him yesterday.
Right. Right. So
it all goes together, folks.
Yes.
It all goes together.
That's right. That's exactly right. Okay. So speaking of throwing shit on the wall and making stuff up all the time.
Yes.
I want to talk about something that is like this has been going on for a while, and we've touched on it in other conversations, but I'd like to dig deep on it because there was actually some pushback today that was really fucking awesome. The anti-Semitism on college campuses. So Donald Trump has been waging war against universities that have allowed students to basically protest the Palestinian war. And he's doing it based on like protecting Jews and curbing anti-Semitism on campus, right? So I have been kind of watching this because I was really disappointed when Colombia basically started capitulating to Trump because he froze something like $400 million. I would also love to point out that like they have really bent the knee and really like done a lot of the things that Trump wanted and have seen zero federal funding come back. So just as an FYI. So you have that. We saw Northwestern kind of do something similar. Cornell did something similar. Like all the universities have really, again, been kind of bending the knee to this guy. But today, Harvard issued a response that basically told Trump to go fuck himself. So
I need you to tell me what their response was, because I just quickly saw this and did not get a chance to dig into it at all. So I am loving this.
So first of all, I read through what the original request was from Trump.
Okay.
It's fucking insane.
Really?
So in its effort to try and combat anti-Semite feelings, these are the demands that it had. And basically this was all to be done before August 2025. So we're talking like 4 months away. So number one, governance and leadership reforms. And basically it was like, you have to make major changes to ensure that there are clean lines of authority and accountability, that you're empowering your senior professors and leadership, and that you're ensuring that your tenured professors and senior leaders are the ones that are getting promoted, that they're the ones that are making decisions, that they're the ones that are deciding things, that it's not just administrators that are like doing this. Because the concern is like administrators that are activists are the ones that are making decisions and not like teachers. Okay. Number two, merit-based hiring reform. So now all hiring has to be merit-based. The university must cease all preferences based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin throughout the hiring, promotion, compensation, and related practices amongst faculty, staff, and leadership. Merit-based admission reform. The university must adopt and implement merit-based admission policies and cease all preferences based on race, color, national origin, or proxies thereof throughout the undergraduate program, blah, blah, blah. International admission reform. The university must reform its recruitment, screening, and admission of international students to prevent admitting students hostile to the American values and institutions inscribed in the U.S. Constitution and Declaration of Independence. What do you think that is? Viewpoint diversity in admissions and hiring. By August 2025, the university shall commission an external party which shall satisfy the federal government as to its competence and good faith to audit the student body, faculty, and staff and leadership for viewpoint diversity, such that each department, field, or teaching unit must be individually viewpoint diverse. Okay. Then there is a whole section on removing DEI. So, like, all of them have to completely limit DEI. The request is discontinuation of DEI. The university must immediately shutter all diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, offices, committees, petitions, and initiatives under whatever name, and stop all DEI-based policies, including DEI-based disciplinary or speech control policies under whatever name, blah, 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 blah. And then reforming programs with egregious records of anti-Semitism or other bias. So we have one section that actually talks about anti-Semitic harassment, but it's like,
because that's not what it's about.
That's right. So to your point, and then there's like some other stuff, but to your point, like, it is clear that the majority of these requests are all around like DEI and merit-based hiring and admissions, and like basically it's all about let's get rid of our DEI initiatives. I was shocked when I read that. I would have thought Trump would have been better at hiding it. Like, honestly, like, to just say it point blank, hey, in order for us to, like, how does discontinuing DEI fight anti-Semites? Like, how does that, like, in all fairness, like, protecting religious communities actually does a lot more to protect like the Jewish community. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I do. And it's also the same shit that's going on right now within the federal government, where they've been instructed to rat out anybody that they think in their department has anti-Christian bias.
I know, but at least in those cases, like the government has the right to tell the government you get rid of DEI because that right. But in this case,
yeah,
like, you're lying. Like, how are you not seeing this? And like, you're lying. Right?
Well, yes.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. I interrupted you. I
fine.
told Nicole, for our listeners, I told Nicole I was going to let her talk more because I'm the one that edits a lot of these and I just fucking ramble from time to time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, shut up, bitch. No. And I was like, oh, I'd say, go ahead. And then I immediately interrupt you and start talking again. I'm going to give you the floor. You talk.
No, all I was trying to say is that for me, I think he's throwing out anti-Semitism, right? Obviously because of the war, but also because it is a flashpoint, right? For people because of World War II, because of what happened and all of that. Yes. So it's a safe thing to say, we're trying to protect the Jews from, anti-Semitic hate on college campuses.
That's right.
That's not happening. And protesters that are protesting the Palestinian war are not trying to figure out what students are Jewish and harass them. Right. Like, that's not what's happening.
That's right.
And I also think the whole thing with the DEI, they don't feel like they have to hide behind anything else.
So that's the reality of it, right?
Yeah, they don't need to.
They don't need to. MAGA doesn't care.
Nope.
Well, Harvard did. So they released what they felt was a good response letter, and the title of it was The Promise of American Higher Education. So the beginning of it is like how they've basically been awarded federal government grants and contracts specifically to help pay for work that their students are doing to like create groundbreaking innovations around medical innovations, engineering, scientific innovations, like working on, dementia health and cancer health and
all the things we
Alzheimer's
should
and
want.
Parkinson's. Right. All the things that you should want. Okay. So it says, late Friday night, the administration issued an updated and expanded list of demands, warning that Harvard must comply if we intend to maintain our financial relationship with the federal government. And I read that to you. The president of Harvard says, I encourage you to read the letter, which is how I got my hands on it, to gain a fuller understanding of the unprecedented demands being made by the federal government to control the Harvard community. They include requirements to audit the viewpoints of our student body, faculty, and staff, to reduce the power of certain students, faculty, and administrators targeted because of their ideological views. We have informed the administration through our legal counsel that, and this is bolded and underlined, we will not accept the proposed agreement. The university will not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. The administration's prescription goes beyond the power of the federal government. It violates Harvard's First Amendment rights and exceeds the statutory limits of the government's authority under Title VI. And it threatens our Roman numerals. Yeah. And it threatens our values as a private institution devoted to the pursuit, production, and dissemination of knowledge. No government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. He goes on to talk about their motto, and they are like, whatever. Then he says, we have made it abundantly clear that we do not take lightly our moral duty to fight anti-Semitism. Over the past 15 months, we've taken many steps to address anti-Semitism on our campus. We plan to do much more. And he talks about like things that they're doing to like fix it. And then he ends it by, the work of addressing our shortcomings, fulfilling our commitments, and embodying our values is ours to define and undertake as a community. Freedom of thought and inquiry, along with the government's longstanding commitment to respect and protect it, has enabled universities to contribute in vital ways to a free society and to healthier, more prosperous lives for people everywhere. All of us share a stake in safeguarding that freedom. We proceed now, as always, with the conviction that the fearless and unfettered pursuit of truth liberates humanity. And with faith in the, again, underlined and bolded, enduring promise that America's colleges and universities hold for our country and our world.
Oh my God.
I was like, thank God.
Because more of them need to be doing that. And maybe now they'll feel like, because a huge Ivy League college has more or less said fuck off to the Trump administration, maybe more of them will be emboldened to not back down, to not live in fear of having those federal dollars taken away from them.
Yep.
Maybe that's too big of an ask. I don't know. But
here's what I call on. All of you fucking billionaires.
Yeah.
All of you billionaires. If you believe that the only way that we are going to continue a nation that actually does value truth, honesty, and learning, pick up their tabs, please.
Yeah.
Pick up these tabs.
Yeah.
Tell the government, like, to your point, these universities, yes, they are now for-profit organizations, and so they have the ability to like shoulder some of this. But at the end of the day, pick up these tabs, help these universities fight against what this really is, because the only thing that Trump has over these universities to try and force this is money. And that should be an easy problem for us to solve. So especially if you're a billionaire that graduated from Harvard, send them that $2.3 billion. If you are a Northwestern University billionaire graduate, send them their money so that they can ensure that they still have the ability to like dictate how their university operates.
Yes.
That's
100%.
That's my call to action here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good for Harvard, man.
Yeah.
Good for Harvard.
I love it.
Just, to your point, I really hope that this gives other private universities and, anyway, other private universities the balls to actually stand up and say, no, we're not going to let you dictate what happens with us. Go fuck yourself, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting because we were on our daughter's campus on Saturday, and there was an article in the campus paper. There is a group on campus. I don't remember what the group is called, but they are right-leaning. They're upset because they have been writing things on the sidewalks in sidewalk chalk, hateful, ugly things, and it's disappearing off the sidewalks. And so now they are accusing the university of stifling their First Amendment rights. They're accusing the university of not adhering to the Trump administration's DEI policies. They're accusing the the university of all kinds of crazy things. And so this article, I had a very good time reading it because the president of this group sounded like an absolute idiot and made himself sound like an absolute idiot in this newspaper. And then they go and interview the president of the group within the university that gives out funding for different groups to bring speakers onto campus, because that was something else that they're alleging, is that they're not being given the same amount of money for their speakers as other groups are because they don't want conservative speakers on campus. And this guy's like, that's literally not true. We gave them over $8,600 last year to bring speakers onto campus. They've already been given $3,600 this year to bring speakers on campus. It's sidewalk chalk. That's what we were talking about with our daughter. It's sidewalk chalk.
I know. I can bring a gallon container of water,
yes,
wash it off, and it's gone.
Yes, and that's what our daughter was saying. Like, just because it disappears off the sidewalks doesn't mean the president of the university is the one making it go away. There's tons of kids on this college campus that potentially don't agree with you.
Right. Just don't agree with you.
Horrible shit on these sidewalks about women and abortion and minorities and all. People aren't going to stand for that shit.
Right. What do you expect?
Right.
You dumb fucking idiots.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
But this is what the Trump administration has emboldened these young kids and other people, not just young kids, but MAGA in general, to do. I'm being persecuted because my First Amendment rights are being taken away, or I feel like my First Amendment rights are being taken away. But fuck your feelings, because your feelings aren't facts, and you don't get your First Amendment rights. Because I don't agree with what you had to say.
That's right. And they're so, deep into their confirmation bias that I think they think everyone thinks their way. Mm-hmm. That Democrats are totally like that left-leaning people just don't really honestly exist. Like you and I are getting paid right now for having this podcast. Like we don't really believe this way. Like I really think that they just believe that everybody thinks the way that they do. And I'm sorry, but the fact of the matter is like, we just don't. Like most people don't. Even the ones that don't vote, that weren't out voting, that aren't, whatever. Yeah. Even those people don't feel the way that you feel. Like, sorry, sir, but people just don't feel that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of really fucking horrible things happening to women.
Oh, yeah.
Can we talk about the SAVE Act for a minute?
Yes. Okay.
So the SAVE Act was an act that was originally introduced with the idea of we're going to combat voter fraud. I love the fact that at this point, we still have no evidence of any type of voter fraud, except for the most part, what we see the Republicans doing, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, like almost every single challenge of voter fraud or case of voter fraud that's come up has been thoroughly debunked, and there's been no solid proof that there's any type of voter fraud happening whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. And specifically, I think specifically around illegal immigrants voting.
Yes.
Because that's what they love to say, is that we have all these illegal immigrants voting for Democrats.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm sorry, but it says specifically it was introduced in response to fears about voter fraud, although research has consistently shown that incidents are exceedingly rare and not at all a significant factor in American elections. That was from NPR, but of course, NPR links to the research that has shown that.
Yeah.
Okay, but the problem is that basically it would require that anybody that goes in to vote, their driver's license isn't enough, and that they're going to have to actually show a requirement to prove U.S. citizenship, either a birth certificate, a passport, naturalization paperwork, or the real ID that indicates some type of citizenship. So the concern there is, first of all, how many of us still have our birth certificate? Second of all, U.S. passport and a real ID.
Yeah.
They're both somewhat expensive and require paperwork.
All
like
kinds of paperwork to get them.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
And then, of course, the big concern is like, as myself, as you, I think are likely the case. My birth certificate has a different last name because I got married.
Yep.
They say that 69 million American women have taken on their spouse's name, so their birth certificates don't match the name that they have today.
Yep.
So the concern, of course, is that the bill could make it harder for married women to vote. Now, I've said again and again and again, I'm lucky enough that a lot of this dumb shit doesn't affect me. And I have a passport. I have a real ID. I have the things that are required for me to be able to vote.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, that's not the norm. It is
right.
Most people don't have a passport, and a lot of times to get a passport, you have to have things like a birth certificate, and it's a pain in the ass, and it's really expensive.
Yes,
that's really expensive.
And if I can remember, when I got my real ID, which was well after I had a passport, I had to jump through all these hoops to get. Like, I had to get another copy of my marriage certificate because what I had used to get my passport originally wasn't a good enough copy of my marriage certificate. And we got married in Vegas. So I had to, reach out to the county in Vegas to get my marriage certificate again. And I couldn't use my passport to get my real ID.
Girl, try getting married in Mexico. Because that is all in fucking Spanish.
Yeah.
So in order for us to be able for me to get mine, I had to take it to a certified place to have it translated. And now anytime I have to supply my marriage certificate, I have to supply an original copy from Jalisco County, plus a certified notarized copy from the place that we went to here in town. And I am lucky enough to live in a place that I live in a metro community. So I have that kind of stuff.
Right.
But if you don't live in a metro community, what the fuck are you going to do? Drive 7 hours to get to a place that does this kind of thing?
And that's the point, right?
Yes.
How do you disenfranchise people any easier than this?
Yep. Yes.
This is what happens.
Yes. So they are saying that this could affect elections. Even a change of 1 or 2% can vastly change how elections turn out.
Yeah.
And you're exactly right. Like that's the whole point. I've heard a call to action for all married women to change their names back.
Yep. I have advised, marriage is nowhere near on my daughter's radar at this point, but I have said, don't ever change your last name. Ever. I don't give a shit what happens with the Trump administration, what happens in the future. Don't hyphenate your name. Do not take your partner's last name if you are a woman.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Because this is, and with all my feminist rantings, it never occurred to me to not take my husband's name.
Me neither.
I wanted to take his last name when we got married. But
and when you have kids, you want your kid and you to have
the same. Yes, the whole family to have the same last name.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't love the idea of Mark having and AJ having the same last name, and I don't. I don't love that.
No, I don't either.
To your point, but I also am like, okay, but honestly, if you're married to one of these assholes that it would make a difference. Like Mark would be like, do whatever the fuck you want. Right. Change your last name to match Nicole's. I don't care. Right, he wouldn't give two shits.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if I was not married to a man like that, you bet your ass that'd be like, sorry. Yeah. This is what you're a Republican. This is what your administration is forcing me to do.
These people have joked about this is what they want. They want the husband to be the only voting person, that he votes for the family, that's what their goal is. And I think what really, everybody keeps, I keep seeing on social media, it's not going to pass the Senate. It's not going to pass the Senate. They got to have a 60 vote requirement. They got to get 7 votes to pass the Senate. The motherfuckers got 4 Democrats in the House to flip sides. And I looked it up today because I'm like, I need to know who these motherfuckers are.
Give us names.
Okay. Jared Golden of Maine, and I have a fucking quote on his punk ass. Marie Glusen Camp Perez of Washington. Henry Queller, it's a C, I'm not quite sure, whatever, of Texas. And Ed Case of Hawaii. Jared Golden of Maine said on X, following the vote last week, there are a lot of misleading claims out there about the SAVE Act. Let me set the record straight. I voted for the SAVE Act for the simple reason that American elections are for Americans. Requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote is common sense. We already have to fucking do that. That's the goddamn point.
Yep.
In order to register to vote, you have to prove you're a citizen. That's already a thing that fucking exists.
That's
and
right.
so this is the other thing that I didn't know what happened. So Republicans blocked an amendment from Rep. Maxine Dexter, which would have required studies and certification to ensure that the bill does not impact married women before it was passed into law. They blocked that because that's the fucking point. The point, because if that wasn't the point, was to disenfranchise half the fucking population, why would you block that?
Okay.
So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. See, this is what I do. I interrupt your ass.
No,
Finish
it's
your
fine.
thought.
No, I think that okay, so she said in a statement to Newsweek, Rep. Dexter said that should tell you everything you need to know about their intentions. However, Rep. Golden, this motherfucker, this Democrat from Maine, said on social media that the bill requires state leaders to establish protocols to allow citizens to register, even if there are discrepancies in documents, such as name changes. So two things, right? Like the states have the largest capacity to handle their elections with federal oversight. But what strikes me about that sentence is it requires state leaders to establish protocols to allow citizens to register, even if there's discrepancies. It doesn't mean they're going to allow you to vote. It just means they're going to allow you to register to vote, and they can take your vote away later when you actually show up at your polling place. They can be like, oh, there's a flag in our system that says all your shit's not in line. So you're not going to be able to vote right now today in this election.
Yeah. So the other thing that this does is it also completely disenfranchises trans people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other thing that I was reading about is like trans people are going to be targeted. To your point, like people who have fought and fought and fought to have all of their name changed on most of their documents. Now are going to have to try and go back and have it changed on their birth certificate, which again takes tons of,
and it's tons of time, tons of money,
tons of money,
it's anxiety, it's
legal,
stress, and you're making them take on a dead name.
Yes.
That they don't go by anymore.
That's correct.
There's a person that I have worked with before who had a horrible upbringing, despised his father, grew up, and as an adult completely changed his name because he didn't want to be tied to his father. And he picked a random, like, he didn't take his mother's maiden name. He didn't, he completely.
And that's more. So we have a family member who did the exact same fucking thing.
Really?
And I don't know that it was like he had bad blood with his family. Mm-hmm. I don't know enough about that, but he basically wanted himself and his wife and his kids to pick a new name that they all agreed on. Mm-hmm. And they did. They picked a new name and it has significant meaning for them. And they went through the process of changing their name for everybody. But the reality is, like, now they all will have to fucking figure that out because their birth certificates aren't going to match any of their stuff.
Yeah, like women.
None of them.
Yeah, women and trans folks are going to be the ones immediately that are going to struggle under this if it passes.
That's right.
But men will be impacted in other ways as well.
Well, they say that 5% of the Black community doesn't have an ID versus 1% of the white community.
Wow.
That 140 million U.S. citizens don't have passports. Mm-hmm. Of course, tens of millions don't have access to their birth certificates. Right. Yeah. So you're talking about and you have issues with like homeless people and, people who are in houses or community, you know what I mean? Like, all those people now will not have easy ability to just like, oh, let me go grab my birth certificate and go vote.
This is going to make me I just thought of these two things. It's also going to impact MAGA voters. Number one, that's one thing I want to say.
Yeah.
This is also going to impact MAGA voters. This is not just owning the libs, passing the SAVE Act. That's not all this is.
Nope.
But also, this makes me fearful enough. Like, we have a safe in the house, and that's where all of our documents are, and that kind of stuff. But I'm like, do I go open a safety deposit box at the bank?
Yeah.
Do I go back and act like it's 1998 and start paying annually for a safety deposit box at the bank so that if this fucking house blows down or we have a goddamn tornado rip through here, I don't lose all my documents and have to jump through all these fucking hoops to get my passport sent back to me, to get my, you know what I'm saying?
Girl, we have a safe in our garage.
Yeah.
That is fireproof.
Yeah.
And weighted and you can screw it to the floor.
Yeah.
For exactly that reason. And you're right. That's where my real ID is. That's where my TSA clear ID is. Mm-hmm. That's where my passport is. All of that is in that safe and it's got a lock and key because I have to make sure that none of my documents are compromised or I could be totally. And I've got my fucking Spanish marriage certificate and my Spanish. Do you know that when I got married in Mexico, we had to put they took our fingerprints?
Really?
It's like a 7-page document.
That's
it is
wild.
Not like, so for anyone who doesn't know, I perform weddings. So just FYI, I perform weddings. And as far as I know, there are a couple of brides and grooms I don't talk to anymore, but as far as I know, I have 100% success rate that everyone I have married has not gotten divorced. Just saying. And for those of you that I've married, that's a threat. That's a threat. You fucking ruin and I'll kill you.
Track record.
That's right. My track record, and I'll kick your ass. But like, to your point, like I keep all of my documents in that specific safe so that I don't touch those and bring them out for any reason unless like I'm traveling and I have to have them.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, our safe is the kind that goes in between the studs in a wall.
Yeah.
And so, it's in the house, but I'm just like, but then, and then it's the thing of like, if I need my fucking documents, I got to make time to go by the bank to get them out of the fucking safety deposit box and all the bullshit. But then it's like, I guess if the bank got hit by a tornado, I guess it was just meant to be that I was going to lose all my shit at that point. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why I feel like if it's nailed to the floor.
Yeah.
Like the floor is not going anywhere. Like the rest of the house can go somewhere, but the floor is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
I would hope not.
Okay. We've gotten off on a tangent.
Yes.
All right. So, the SAVE Act is definitely a concern. A friend of the podcast alerted us about this months ago, but at the time, it wasn't getting a lot of traction. And exactly like you said, Nicole, it was like, oh, it'll never pass. It'll never pass. It'll never pass. But we are seeing it actually coming to some light. And so I wanted to make sure that we talked about it.
Do we know, and I'm asking this not because I want you to look it up, but because I haven't looked it up and I just haven't heard. Do we know when the Senate's going to vote on it?
I haven't looked. No, okay. I have not even looked.
Okay.
That's
fine. I just didn't know if you knew.
All right. Let's see. The House passed the SAVE Act. What comes next?
Like they'll probably have to put it on the docket, right? So
yeah,
we know for sure they're going to try to get that shit passed before the midterms.
Oh yeah.
So it'll happen late this year or early next year, I would assume, in the Senate, right? That they're going to try to vote on it.
Yeah. And I guess, so in reading this article, I don't know how real this is, but the SAVE Act passed the House last Congress.
It did.
But it died in the Democratic-controlled Senate.
Yep, it did. And I don't know if I had read that too, and I don't know if it was the same or if they had made tweaks to it this time from last time or what. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
But I don't think Democrats should just wholeheartedly believe that it'll never pass the Senate because the House was able to get 4 Democrats to flip sides.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
That should concern the living shit out of every Democrat.
Yep, I would agree with that. Yeah, there's nothing that says on here on this particular article that I'm on, and I don't, to your point, like, I won't Google it, but yeah. Okay. I know. I'll Google it and then put a date up on the screen.
I love it. You're so good.
We'll see what happens.
Okay.
But for those of you who are listening through traditional like audio podcasts, I'm so sorry. You'll have to Google that yourself.
You'll have
Okay.
to get on YouTube and just fast forward to get to
That's
that
right.
point.
Just to this one thing. Okay. So real quick, I wanted to, this is just a very quick, the IRS Chief Information Officer resigned today.
I had not heard this.
Yeah. So, basically Doge has had access to all of the IRS documentation since February.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire IRS leadership team, or at least the majority of the IRS leadership team, has been pretty vehemently against Doge having that access. They claim that they're using it for, understanding illegal immigrants and like immigrants and et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, I think we can all guess that they're looking at who are your political contributions to, who are your super PAC contributions to, what programs are you supporting? I mean, all of this, and then like being able to take action on people as they want to. So it's just one more step in this fascist world we're living in.
Yes.
But it was interesting because so originally the acting head of the agency and the chief privacy officer had both resigned directly in protest. Now we've had the chief risk officer, the chief financial officer, and then the chief information officers all resign.
So, who's running the IRS?
So to your point, there is a real concern about brain drain from the organization because like,
is it just the worker bees left at this point?
Right. I want to say that I want to say that there's maybe two C-suite officers still
there.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look. But let's see.
And how long are they going to stay? I mean, that's the thing, right? Like,
I don't know, but at the end of the day, like that's their big concern. And it's like the day before tax day.
Taxes are due. Yeah.
That's right. And so it's like so the unit that audits billionaires has lost 38% of its workers. Shocking.
And that was because of Doge, right? Like Doge had cut their workforce, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So between that and then having their entire, well, not their entire, but a lot of their C-suite staff leave.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling that Trump has like just hoping the whole thing collapses. Right?
Yep.
And I assume the whole assumption is like, oh, if it does that, then we can pay taxes any goddamn way we want to.
Yeah.
With the assumption that people like you and I are going to continue paying taxes just like we're supposed to. Mm-hmm. And that people like Trump, who hasn't paid taxes in years, or Elon Musk, who hasn't, that it just paves the way for them.
Yeah.
This to me is a big thing that like your Bernies and your AOCs could really run on. Like this is one of those things that like they could really run. And maybe you think the IRS is total bunk, but the reality is somebody has to be auditing to find issues where customers are like fooling the system. Right. Like that's the whole point. So anyway, I heard that today. Tomorrow's tax day. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
So I thought I would bring it up today. But
yeah.
Speaking of other interesting stories, the one I'm currently watching that I am really excited about.
Yeah.
Marjorie Taylor Greene and the insider trading.
Oh my God. I need some updates on this because I have seen like snippets of like, are they actually going to get investigated? Are they not? And is it because Trump's, like I saw Trump's Twitter or whatever on his social media that was like, now's a great time to buy as he's tanking the fucking, market. But so tell me what she's done because I don't understand what she did.
So here's the long and short of it. Basically, so Donald Trump, he came out with the tariffs and he implemented the tariffs. He implements the tariffs. And yes, it had been reported on at that point. But within 2 hours, the stock market had crashed. Mm-hmm. And she bought up. So they don't have exact numbers because I guess they don't disclose exact numbers, but they give you like a range of what she purchased. Mm-hmm. And it was in the tens of thousands of dollars worth of stock that she purchased at that time.
When it was obviously when it was low.
Yes. And this was like within 2 hours of the real big drop. Right.
Shit.
Okay. So there's something called like the Don't Trade on Congressional Information Act. And it basically says like you can like senators and Congress people can trade, but if they don't do it in a blind trust that they don't have access to, then it has to be done like forms have to be filed within 5 days of the trade
Oh,
so that
yeah,
they can
okay.
be reviewed and make sure
Like
that
the
it
financial
was
disclosures and all this
exactly
kind
a
of shit.
financial disclosure.
Okay.
So right now they're saying that technically it's likely to be legal because it was public knowledge that the tariffs have been
Yeah.
enacted.
Yeah.
But there's some questions around like, did she know information before the tariffs were made legal? Did she have plans to make purchases? Did people around her and around Donald Trump make purchases because they knew information, et cetera, et cetera? At this point, the New York Attorney General has the ability to start investigations and things like these. So what they're saying at this point is like she has not started an actual investigation, but she today announced that she is going to be looking into what people did. Now, um, there was a congressman from Texas. What was his name? Giorgio Caesar. So a Texas Democratic representative said, we need an investigation into insider trading by people like Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. We need an investigation into whether any K Street lobbyists or other big firms were tipped off by Donald Trump's actions. So he had called for already being an investigation. And there have been multiple people who have accused Nancy Pelosi and her husband. But that's why they put in this, like, I don't know, I can't remember what it's called, but it's something like, don't trade on congressional. So what I want to know is why isn't this just outlawed? The president cannot trade based on, they're like, you have too much sensitive information.
Yeah.
And a number of Democrats and Republicans have said, listen, we shouldn't be allowed to trade because we know too much information and we have too much control over what happens with the stock market.
Yeah.
Which we just saw with the
literally
tariffs.
with our own eyes.
That's exactly right. Because then
Yeah.
like it bumped up and now she's made a shit ton of money based on what she did. So this isn't, again, something like a lot of, like, I'll tell you that I was reading the Economic Times, which is, I think, a British based, or maybe the Financial Times. But anyway, they took great pains in saying that as of right now, MTG has not broken any laws. Everything she does appears to be legal. Like, don't jump to conclusions. So I'm trying not to.
Yeah. But
it's hard.
It is hard, especially because Trump was in the Oval with NASCAR drivers and Jamie Dimon and some other millionaire and saying he just made 900 and some odd $1 million and this guy made so much $1 million. Look at what I did for them.
Yep.
You tanked the fucking market, then you retracted the tariffs and the market rebounded and they made all this money. And so now you're saying the quiet part out loud. Look at what I did for them. Like, did you do it on purpose? Because you and I talked about this last week. That was this intentional? Was this literally the whole reason for him doing what he did?
Yep.
He doesn't really believe in the tariffs. He's doing it to allow his millionaire and billionaire buddies the opportunity to buy shit super, super cheap and make a fucking shit ton of money when he calls the tariffs off and the market rebounds.
So to your point, I don't want to say that, like, I'm trying not to be conspiracy theory, but it's so hard.
It's so hard when he says shit like that.
And they did exactly that.
Yes.
To your point, they did exactly that.
Yeah. So it's hard to not be a conspiracy theorist when you're like, well, fuck, here's exhibit A. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's exactly right. So right now, in effect, China's tariff rate of 145%. Canada, but it has exemptions. So it's 25% on anything non-energy, 10% on energy, and potash.
Potash.
Mm-hmm. Potash. What's potash? Yeah.
Potash is hold on, because I do know this. I do know this from one of the industries I worked in. Hold on. I should be able to tell you this without having to look it up, but I can't. It's a common name for potassium salts, particularly used in fertilizers. So when I worked for Farmland Industries, potash was one of the things that we had to move for the farmers. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Got you.
Yeah.
Mexico is 25%. then a 10% effective universal tariff on all imports except for those Canada, Mexico, and China. Then the reciprocal tariffs are on pause. So that crazy fucking chart of just insanity is on pause.
Horseshit math.
That's right.
Yes.
Automobiles, all automobiles for finished cars that were finished no later than May 3rd are 25%. Steel and aluminum, 25%. And right now they're investigating timber, lumber, copper, critical minerals, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors. And it's the semiconductors that I think is the biggest fear of like the tech industry right now and the tech and electronics industry right now. So I would venture to say, if you are in the market for a new car, if you are in the market for an iPhone, if you're in the market for any electronic, you should buy it right now.
You better be getting it.
That's exactly right. Okay, I think that is everything that was on my list this week. Did I miss anything, Nicole?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
In that case, share with us
the happy ending.
The happy ending.
Okay.
And I mentioned this, I think, last time that like it's so hard for me not to think like share the hand job with us. No. The last hour has been talking about the American hand job that's been delivered to us.
Yes.
Now give us
the giant
happy
circle
ending.
jerk we're dealing with.
That's right.
Okay, so this is coming from the Philadelphia Zoo.
Okay. Oh, I love a good zoo story. I don't care what it is. I love a good zoo story.
Agreed.
Okay.
And this week, I'm bringing us something from the United States. Our happy ending's coming from the U.S.
Love it. A local happy ending?
Yes.
Okay.
4 critically endangered Galapagos tortoises hatch at the Philadelphia Zoo for the first successful hatching of their species in the zoo's history. So the zoo has been around for 150 years.
Wow.
The hatchlings' parents are the zoo's 2 oldest residents, each estimated to be around 100 years old. The mother tortoise is considered to be one of the most genetically valuable Galapagos tortoises. Go her.
Yeah.
She's also the oldest first-time mother of her species. The hatchlings currently behind the scenes inside the reptile and amphibian house are eating and growing appropriately, weighing between 70 to 80 grams, about the weight of a chicken egg. The first one hatched on February 27th, and the animal care team is still monitoring eggs that could continue to hatch in the coming weeks. They will make their public debut on Wednesday, April 23rd, which is the 93rd anniversary of the mother tortoise's arrival at the zoo.
Wow. And she was 100 years old, right?
100 years old. Yes.
Okay, I just want to point out February 27th is my half birthday.
I love this.
That's right.
I love all of this.
I love all of this.
If you get on the Philadelphia Zoo's website, there's a picture of a baby.
Stop.
And there's a YouTube video of the babies. And there's a picture of the mother.
Okay.
They said that
the site's currently undergoing scheduled maintenance. Please try again soon.
Bitch. This is a monumental achievement for our animal care team that worked diligently to provide the right conditions for the mother to lay her eggs and for the eggs to incubate and successfully hatch.
That's awesome.
You, Philadelphia Zoo.
And look, our happy ending resulted in babies.
Oh my God. I didn't even think about that.
How terrible is that?
I didn't even think about that.
Yes.
But it's every Republican's wet dream.
That's right. It's every Republican's wet fucking dream.
Because you shouldn't have a happy ending without birthing a child.
That's exactly right. All right. On that note, I love our happy ending. Thank you so much for sharing. I will tell all of you at home, I always try and not hear what it's going to be before so that I'm surprised just along with you guys. So that was very exciting. I appreciate it.
Yes.
All right. With all of that, I want to thank everyone who has listened. Again, please like and subscribe to the channel because it really does help us out. Although I don't know what it's helping us to do except to just know that some people
to know that somebody are listening because we're still showing up every week and doing this.
Exactly. So, but to be perfectly honest, at the end of the day, I think neither you or I are going anywhere anyway. So, hey, you do what you got to do, right?
Yeah.
But also, please share our podcast because I would love it if we got new listeners and especially if we could piss off your Republican friends and family. So we're here to do what we can do for that.
Yes.
We love you all. Have a lovely evening.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night.